Hello, and welcome to this episode of the TrueU Leadership Insights podcast. I'm Kyle Defer, your host and president of TrueU, and also with me today is Gretchen Schott, who's our vice president of learning and development at TrueU. Hello, Gretchen.
Good afternoon.
How are you today?
I am very well, thank you.
I know you're very well because you got big plans next week, don't you?
I do. Week from today, Disney cruise, first family Disney cruise.
Cool.
We're very excited. I'm very excited. Yes, I can't wait.
So you're all packed and ready to go?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Got some work to do?
We've been thinking about it a lot and washing clothes to get ready for that, but we're not actually in the packing stage. So,
you know, Gretchen, I frequently ask our members how they disconnect and how they unwind, and I think I'm going to ask you that question. How do you look at this vacation?
I feel as though I should listen to our podcast maybe and get some wisdom on some of those things. I would not be a model for how one should be prepared for that at all.
You going to turn your phone off? You turn your phone off?
Phone's going to be off. There's
Good.
going to be no email. That is for sure. But really, actually, just getting to the excitement of leading up to it's been really great.
Yeah.
Counting down with the kids and leading to it. But I'm not mentally quite ready there yet. I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Maybe after our podcast, maybe I'll think about packing or doing something like that.
There is great value in anticipating a vacation, you know, and as it's coming up, you know, months in advance.
Yeah, it's a countdown.
It's a lot of fun. A lot of the biggest part, I think the greatest enjoyment of vacation is actually the anticipation of it.
Well, and I've been thinking it's like a year in the planning. And now it's like, oh my gosh, it's like next week.
Yeah.
It's like crazy. Yeah. It like went so fast. Before it felt like so long, but now I'm like, I got to get it all done.
Have you done a Disney cruise before?
No, this is our first one.
I've heard they're great.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard they're great.
We're
I had a
excited.
wonderful time.
We'll have a whole podcast on my vacation experience, perhaps.
Tell Mickey I said hi.
I will.
Tell Mickey I said hi.
For sure.
Well, today on our podcast, we're really excited. We have Derek Block, who is the CEO of Touchstone Merchandise Group. Touchstone has been a member really from the early days of TrueU.
One of the originals, yeah.
Derek is a young guy, and he started this company just a year or two out of college. You know, it was it's an interesting story that he's been as successful as he has, just right out of school and taking it and running with it. You know, one of the things that, and being a young leader, I think as his company was growing, I appreciated his honesty with us today in this podcast. He talked about how they got to a point where they were growing, and in some ways, I think he referred to it as they lost their way a little bit. And I appreciate him sharing that. But the pain of that required them to really refocus and think about what kind of culture do we want here? What do we want our company to be about?
Yeah.
What kind of impact we want to have on our employees, and how do we want to help them to grow and to develop? And so it was an interesting story how he took those early days and really now has created a really great company. So let's go ahead and listen to the interview with Derek. Well, why don't we start with you sharing a little bit about Touchstone so our listeners get a feel for your business?
Sure. Touchstone we turned 21 this year, which is hard to believe I've been doing it this long, but our business in short, is a branded merchandise business. Mm-hmm. We live in a space called the advertising specialty space. But really what we do and the way we've defined it is really building brands through merchandise collections and telling their story through merchandise collections. So, you know, when people ask what we do, it's a bit of a tough question to answer because there's merchandise component to it. But really that's probably the least important thing, if you can believe it or not, even though that's where our revenue is generated. Yeah. But it's really a brand building company that has a merchandise element to it. Yeah.
You work with some large clients as well, right?
We do. We've been fortunate in our history to work with some big customers, and a few of them, Progressive Insurance, Kroger is a new customer of ours. So the enterprise clients have really, for us, they've been a great way for us to live out what we do with like-minded people that have opportunity for us to engage in a bunch of different ways versus just a specific deliverable for maybe a smaller company.
Yeah. Yeah. And Touchstone has an awesome website.
Thank you.
If you haven't had a chance to go look at their website, go check out their website. They've done a great job with it. What is your website address?
It's tmgideas.com.
tmgideas.com. Okay, great. I know Derek, you've done a great job, and culture is always something that's continually evolving and developing. Why don't you share with our listeners a little bit about some of the ways you've gone about developing your desired culture?
Well, the way that we've developed has probably been by being good thieves of great ideas out there. And for a long time, we were just focused on building our business, probably like everybody is, and trying to be financially successful. And along the way, we got a little bit lost on who we were and kind of what culture meant and how we retain people. So and we didn't have a playbook. I didn't work for anybody else where I could just drag in everything I've learned. So for me, it was a little bit different in that regard. So part of that evolution when we grew to a certain size and started having the trials and tribulations of a high growth company of turnover with people and really what are we standing for and stuff, we recognized many years ago how important culture was and just how do we remain relevant for our people that are also growing. When you're a young company and you have young employees, they're kind of figuring out their way too. And when they do, they start to think, what does this place offer me in growth and opportunity? So we 21 years, probably a dozen years ago, we had grown into a size that we liked the path and trajectory of the company, but we were really starting to recognize, what does this place really stand for and how are we going to provide opportunity. I was fortunate enough to meet some great people along the way and highly influential people, which you guys all know. Dave Lindsay has been a huge mentor to me in a lot of ways, but certainly the example that Defenders has provided for probably everybody in TrueU. So I met Dave probably 6 or 7 years ago, and Dave said, why don't you, I said, well, what's going on with your company? I want to learn more about it. So he invited me to attend really everything, their culture day, their leadership day, and I did. And I took him up on his offer and started to learn how, it was not ever really working for anybody. I didn't really know how other businesses did it. So I got some insight into how they had created such an incredible culture at their business and started to formulate what ours would look like. So we took a lot of those things as building blocks. I encouraged him, like, how could we do that? So I think that was probably, there's enough people that did that, and probably is why TrueU exists today.
What are some words or language that you use to create emphasis around the aspects of your culture?
We probably the first thing is, and we talked about this recently. I talked about it with some peer groups that I'm in, and really some great advisors to me is, what is our culture? And for us, even though we've gone through implementing a lot of things, I said we're redefining that, and it feels like we redefine it every day. I would tell you that we were a culture of family. We use that word a fair amount, and we were turned into a culture of high performance. I'd say if you look at our culture now, it's a high performing culture. So, we built a field guide. I think I've shared that with you guys in the past, but we built a field guide that has a lot of aspirational language around how we do what we do. And that's a big differentiating factor for us, just the way we talk about what we do. But I don't know if there's a particular word or phrase. Our tagline is create and inspire brand interaction. So a lot of aspirational, disruptive thinking. We encourage people to think outside of the box and live it out. We have a culture that has really gone from leadership providing the answer for people to leadership providing the framework for people to make their own decisions and empowering them to do that, and allowing them to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, or get themselves into a where they have an option to choose, and processing through that, and probably really focus on building a culture of people that can think like leaders and lead other people. And for us, we look at it, it's a labor of love. Putting a platform in place where people think that way, or where they can learn and train, and that can't be it. The encouragement we have from a leadership perspective is go bring people on board every day, and go ask them to take the journey with you that you're taking, as opposed to just sitting back and saying the framework's there, eat what you want. So we talk about it. I think out of every leadership meeting that we have, we walk out of there with a renewed spirit to go bring people along for the ride with you, encourage them to do the things that you're doing with you. And we've built a culture calendar so people know what's coming up. We promote that really every week, every day, and try and think about the participation that we can have, but never get too excited about how much participation we have.
So when you say a culture calendar, what would be on a culture calendar?
Well, we've got probably there's I would say 75 different events on there. So we do have in the summer months, we have a Wednesday morning fitness club. So everybody meets at a specified place, and then we all go for coffee after. So we get them in early, engaged. Healthy living is a big part of healthy thinking. So we get them engaged in that. We have TrueU happy hours. So the ticket to entry is taking something in TrueU. So we try and get participation there. And we literally, when people come in, somebody greets them and asks them, what did you take, and tell me a little bit about it.
So they attended a class on the portal or something, that's their entry to,
So, we're trying to engage people in a little bit different way to encourage participation. It's just like joining a gym. If you join a gym, you might feel good about joining it. You might go a little bit, and then 3 months later, you might not. So for us, we struggled with week to week, month to month. What are the next things we're doing? So what we decided to do is go in and build that calendar and give people stuff to look forward to. But we have 3 fitness events on there. So a color run, not an Ironman, but a mud run type of competition, and then a half marathon. So those are all built in there. There is a Camp Touchstone event late in the summer. So just stuff like that. And then we'll have different learning events and speaking engagements too that get put on the calendar. So the big thing for us is, having the mindset of not disappointment for lack of attendance, but excitement for those who attend. And we really want the positive spiral to happen and breathe life into it every day.
I love the idea of with your leadership, talking about engaging and inviting others to join them. Right. So you can't invite somebody to join you if you're not doing it. So that's a way of building in the expectation that we're all growing, we're all developing as leaders, and then we invite other folks around us to join us in that, as opposed to saying you need to do this, but are you doing it yourself? Right. Yeah, that's really good. You mentioned earlier the field guide. What is the field guide? What does that consist of?
Yeah. So the field guide for us was a way to take this aspirational thinking and the way we talk about our business and really equip our people to think about it and talk about it the same way. So much of what you read on the website and the copywriting that's on there will be within the book. We have a set of tools that we use. We look at what we do and know that what we do is revolutionary in the field that we're in. A lot of it, and if you think of branded merchandise, is just talking about the product and how cool the product is, which is really just a lot of shallow thinking and a lot of salesmanship. But we don't talk about the product. We talk about the way products are thought of by consumers and the way the brands are thought of by consumers. So we know if we can get in the hearts and minds of a consumer with a brand, that they're gonna be attached to the brand. So a lot of the language that's in there will be everything from the way that we engage with the consumer, the tools that we use, how all the elements of our culture. So we have a partner designation. We have an IM pledge within our organization.
What's the IM pledge?
So the IM pledge, we it was probably 3-4 years ago. Part of this evolution and journey of our business and culture building is we were having morning workshops. And the morning workshops, we did some Maxwell facilitator-led courses. We did some Andy Stanley podcasts where we would just get people to think, and then in smaller groups dissect it and then present back to the group. And what we ended up doing is part of that is having more of an open format and what people really wanted to talk about. And the evolution of that was what you see in the IM Pledge today. And the IM Pledge really is kind of built by our people for them. So it's everything from, not going around a person, but going to them, to holding your peers accountable, to encouraging them to live healthy and work healthy. So there's probably 10 different elements to that. And part of the onboarding process for people is exposing them to that, and then asking them to become part of that. So it's a pledge that, I would say that everybody signs. We have a big wall in our office where people sign on to it. And it's something that it really gives us the framework, gives people the framework to not look to somebody else to do it, or not look to somebody else to maybe blame, but to work together as a team, hold each other accountable. And it was really, we facilitated it, but it was built by all of our colleagues inside of the business. So it's a really important thing that we go back to a lot, and we put that in front of everybody as much as we can, because if they live the IM Pledge, then our business is going to be really, really healthy, and it's not going to be a business that needs to be managed, management of people per se, but it's going to be a business that's managed from within, and the high performance comes from within.
Yeah, good. I know you were one of the first companies within TrueU that created the culture boards. And so I know you work with Gretchen Schott, our VP of Learning and Development at TrueU, in terms of the development of that culture board. What is your thinking around the culture board, and why did you decide to go that route? Yeah,
so being a good thief, we saw the Defenders Monopoly board, and we liked it a lot. The thing that you get a little, rudderless, and you just feel like you're floating out there. You have this framework for people to go engage a platform like TrueU, but what is their process and plan, and what are they really marching towards? So when we check in with people, instead of just the open-ended, how is it going? How are you doing? How are you doing on your 4-year plan? So the 4-year plan really just kind of gives them a framework of what to engage in. We picked elements on there that were critical to our business or our thinking. We have not evolved it. It's been, I think we're in our 3rd year of the board. Definitely over 2 years, but we have not evolved it yet. But there's probably a few things that we will start to evolve a little bit. But really what we did is we wanted to give our staff and our colleagues a bit of a roadmap to how they can grow, and those things that maybe good things, not so much business related, but just good building blocks that everyone can have. So we gave them that as a framework to do that. And, us being heavily weighted in design and creative and stuff, Monopoly was a little bit boring to us. So we did the game of life, and we've been glad to share it with other TrueU members and with you guys providing the art files and everything. But the game of life, we've taken that theme of touchstone life. And that touchstone life has become synonymous with just people's growth and development. So, our Instagram page is a touchstone life page. So it just really become, what's your touchstone life? Mm-hmm. What's your way of thinking? And we really want everyone to have their own life and their own path, but give them a framework within. And it's kind of the way luck works out. The life board has given us kind of a good thing to refer back to. Yeah. Because it is our life. It's everybody's life.
Absolutely. So. I had a conversation, did a video interview with Dave Lindsay about their Defenders Leadership Advantage, and he recognized you for taking it to the next level, in terms of how you've done that. So it really is cool. I mean, how you put that together and actually inspired us. We put together a do-it-yourself kit for our TrueU member companies on how to build their own culture boards. Yeah. And it's powerful to especially for new people who are coming into your organization, mm-hmm. and say, here's a 4-year growth plan for you. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's shared experiences, so your employees are going through the same growth plan, and people want to know, high performers want to know. What's the plan? How can I grow? How can I develop in this organization? And so there aren't many companies that say on day one, here's your 4-year plan, right? And so congratulations to you for that. And it's really inspired us, and we're really excited. We got a lot of companies now that are really taking this and running with it, because it's a great visual way as well with employees to say, this is how I'm growing and developing within this organization.
It is, and if you walk through our building, you'll see everybody's workplace, they'll have their life board hung up, and they'll be marking the stuff off, which is really encouraging to see. And for us, that's a big visible thing, kind of what's measured matters type of thing. So when people have that board out in front of them, they want to be growing and developing too, especially if they see their peers doing it.
Yeah, good. Derek, tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of your own growth journey. What are the things that you're doing to grow and to keep yourself sharp?
Yeah, the first thing is probably recognizing that you need to grow. I certainly wasn't a person that thought I had it all figured out or knew it all, but I was always really busy. I'll kind of get to that later on. So life grows you up. Right, and in our business, we went through some growing up times, whether it's challenges in the business or challenges with people in the business, or a little bit of emptiness on really where are you going, and so I was always certainly not a guy that thought I had it figured out, but a guy that didn't really put growth as first place, and I don't know, maybe it's a bit of just a growing up process. There's a book, Halftime, Bob Buford writes that when I read it, it was kind of after I started my own growth journey, but it kind of was like, wow, this is really what my life has been. The first half of your life is all about kind of what your career is going to be, and what you can what possessions you can get, and the second half becomes what's your life stand for and what legacy are you going to have. So the journey for me, and a lot of influence from peer groups that I've been in, and specifically Dave Lindsay, offering me an opportunity to learn, but then challenging me to grow. So for me, it's probably started 6 or 7 years ago. And I went from kind of interested to active in my growth, and making growth the most important thing, and it's just been for me, it's been a rebirth. So I was fortunate enough to get exposed to certain peer groups, and I joined an organization, YPO, which introduced me to a lot of like-minded people.
Yeah,
which I've been really social and meeting people and stuff, but probably not as intentional on who I'm meeting. So that was a big impact for me in getting in that organization, because I really just probably not on purpose when I joined, but by circumstance, got exposed to a lot of like-minded people. That's where I did meet Dave, but really kind of learned what was out there and what I needed to do and how much I needed to grow. So I just kind of got consumed by it. And I've always been, not ever working for somebody and starting this business, a year or two out of college. I always wondered what great companies were doing. You always wonder, and then you recognize, hey, we have a great company. So, but it was really that probably thirst for learning that was the big influence for pushing to find a TrueU type of platform, to take a lot of the cultural elements and infuse them into our business, and it's been infectious in our business. So every week I'm learning something. We encourage it within our leadership team to just find a nugget a day, whether it's a 5-minute podcast, a quote you read, a meditation app that you may listen to, or a class that you can take, or something to get into. So that building that momentum with a lot of people has really been impactful in our business, and it's allowed us to go from a family culture to a high performance culture, because now there's a lot of people that are just in it together and growing, and it really kind of puts the outliers of people that are stagnant, or maybe just have a different way of thinking. It really kind of challenges them to get on board with everybody else.
Yeah. That was a habit that I'd heard about that I started a number of years ago. I just have a Word document. It's called What I Learned Today.
Yeah.
And I every day I make a point of going in there and putting in something that I've learned that day. Which it's a discipline, but it's helpful as you look at those nuggets, or what are we learning? How are we growing? It makes us aware of them because we're looking for them, because we need to put them in our list. So good stuff. How do you? So you're CEO of this company, founder of this company. It's a rapidly growing organization. That can be all consuming. 24/7, 365 kind of responsibility. But we all know, in terms of being healthy, which you've identified as a key priority, and being a growing organization, how do you disconnect so that you're able to keep yourself recharged and keep yourself sharp?
In being in business 21 years, we've had great milestones of success, and personally and professionally, but we never feel like we've gotten there. And I don't know that we ever will. It's interesting because there's been members of our staff that have grown into leadership roles, and it's funny, they'll come in my office, months or maybe even years being into a leadership role, and have a new appreciation for what I've been doing, because they recognize that the line between work and personal sometimes is really thin, or it gets blurred. For me, I've always been an always-on guy, which was probably a bit unhealthy. So for me, and that's just probably more my life, this being a business that I started and I didn't go work for. I never had a mentality that this is a job. I say it in our annual summit a lot. It seems like when I'm at the microphone that my role in this business is to make this business a great place for you and provide opportunities for you guys. And I work on that business, every day. So for me, I've probably become comfortable with the ambiguity of there not being a big difference between it. But the one thing, every year we encourage everybody to create goals for themselves. And it seems like for as many years as I can remember that one of the goals has been, I have 3 kids, 16, 15, and 12, is to make sure that I'm spending time with them individually at least once a month for a date night. And they're all heavily active in sports. I have a goal to use my vacation time, which seems like I don't end up using at all. But I have also a goal to 7 o'clock at night to 7 in the morning to shut it off.
Yeah,
and little stuff like not reading emails.
Yeah.
The first thing you do when you get up, grab your phone. Yeah. But to just put some boundaries around what is healthy and trying to stay within those boundaries. There's always going to be circumstance that pulls you out of that a little bit. But, the one thing we've learned is it'll be there tomorrow. And if something's really on fire, you're going to get to it. But probably the most critical thing, and we teach this, in part of our onboarding process, is to really live your day in control. And by living in control, and it was a thing that I picked up from Dave. Dave Lindsay was today, this week, this month, this year. So kind of a quadrant, and what Dave taught me is to rewrite it every single day. I'd like to say we've taken that one step further too. So there's a lot of great apps out there that allow you to kind of put everything on a board, and then the stuff you work on is the stuff that you have in today. So you're really intentional about what you're working on. You pull stuff, the idea is pull it from year to month to week to today, and not let anything become the hottest thing, because it's always the hottest thing when it's brand new. So we traffic that and teach our people to traffic that and stay focused to it. So you're working on what you have in your bucket for today. You can always pull more on there. But we found that really builds confidence too, because you feel accomplished at the end of every day when you're banging things off your list. So that's probably the biggest element of how we've stayed really true to getting stuff done.
Is there a specific app that you use that's helpful in that process?
I'm a early adopter. Which I like. The way technology is today. When we have a challenge of something, I'm like, let's see if there's some software out there, an application out there, which there always is. So we started with a platform called TrueU, which was good, and then we used a one called Priority Matrix.
Okay.
And then what we're using now is one called MeisterTask.
MeisterTask. Okay.
Yeah, which is great because you can see all of it. The big thing is seeing all of it in one, right? So you can see the entire dashboard of today all the way through this year, and you can drag stuff from one bucket to another, so you can see the visibility of it, which is why we really migrated from Todoist, because it was siloed in the way you set it up. You have to go out of one tab and into another. But it's a great application. It syncs with everything. And
Good. Last question. Any books that you've been reading recently that have made an impact on you, or any podcasts that you make a point of listening to?
Yeah. So my favorite podcast right now is Tim Ferriss.
Okay.
He's written a number of books. The 4-Hour Work Week, the 4-Hour Body, Tools of Titans is one. But Tim, I like him and I follow him because he's a nugget guy.
Yeah.
Right. He's got a thing called the 5-Bullet Friday, which I encourage you guys to. But it's just it is things that it could be product or apps or the quote he's pondering or the experience that he had. But his story is pretty intriguing. But that's probably the favorite thing, and the thing that I give to people all the time. I'm like, I'm going to give you something, and you're welcome, because it's just good. It gives you. Why I like it is every week you're getting something. You might have nothing that you take away from it. Like, I don't really like any of those, but you might have something that you're like, it's kind of he's combing the world and serving up things that he thinks are relevant, which is cool. Instead of hunting on your own.
Yeah, good. Well, Derek, thanks so much for sharing with us today. We say at TrueU, when you join TrueU, you come as a student and as a teacher. And so today, as a teacher, just sharing your experiences and how you think about your business, I've taken away some things I'm sure our listeners have as well. So thank you so much for the contributions you're making to the TrueU community.
Yes, thank you.
For sharing with us today on the TrueU Leadership Insights podcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Derek's a really insightful young man, isn't he?
He is very bright, and I loved. I didn't think about it when we were meeting with him until he said this, but he's never really worked for anyone else but himself.
Yeah,
and how successful he's been, and I loved what he said about having to really think about what that's like, knowing he's only really worked for himself and wondering what other companies were like. When he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, I never really thought he is so successful. It didn't really occur to me he hadn't worked for anybody else but himself, and that could maybe be lonely.
And he became really intentional about seeking out mentors.
Yeah, which is great. And he talked a lot about. Obviously, Dave's been a big influence in his life, but taking advantage of that. Like, he started kind of selfishly, YPO group, asking, I want to know about your business. Mm-hmm. And then Dave, being so generous, said, come on in, and learned it all. And while he was in there learning, realized he needed to know more. He had to go deeper with himself and his own growth. And I thought that was really authentic and also really honest, but recognizing that wasn't his first thought, was about, how do I learn? It was, tell me about your business, because I want to make my business better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the neat story too of Dave Lindsay opening himself up to Derek and really opening his company to him, saying, hey, come and spend some time with me and we'll take a look. And
come to our orientation, and here's our meetings, and sitting in. In fact, that he did it too, which is awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Derek was really intentional about seeking it out, and he was like a sponge, soaking it in. I think that really compensated for his lack of having other diverse kinds of experiences with other companies. Mm-hmm. Other thoughts that you had in terms of takeaways today? I
loved what he said when he was talking about his company and Touchstone Life, and everything about what does it mean to be Touchstone Life. He talked about the I Am pledge that they take, and he talked a lot about their culture. But I love the idea of a company having a way of life, and that's how you show up, and that's how you're successful in their company, and how he's taken this idea of Touchstone Life, and he's also worked TrueU into that, and that it's part of their culture, it's part of who they are, but there's an expectation that they are adopting, and they're living that out as part of Touchstone Life. I think that's just really great.
He also really embraced the need to grow for himself personally over the course of his journey in running this company and scaling it up. And I loved how he talked about with his leadership group. They just don't provide opportunities to people. Mm-hmm. They encourage their leaders to go out, to their staff and say, "Come along with me.
Come with me.
Let's do this together." Yes. And so they're engaging them in a very concrete way, and you can't do that if you're not growing yourself.
Right.
And so it really sets the way that they approach that from a cultural perspective. It requires the leaders to all be on their own growth journeys.
Yes. Well, and he talked about health, and that I think he said something about you can't be mentally healthy if you're not physically, you can't be spiritually healthy if you're not mentally healthy, and that they provide these opportunities, and they're not expecting everyone to do what I don't do as I do always, but at least be supportive and be a part of it and experience it. And I really thought that was great, and really lucky for those folks that get to be led by those leaders.
The other piece that I thought was neat that he shared was around how he has set boundaries in his own life to stay healthy. Yeah. And so he talked about, from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., he has this goal where he turns his phone off.
Yeah, well, and I thought, do I do that? Probably not. That's pretty bold, pretty strong to say that too. And doesn't check his email, I think, on Sunday. And or not the first thing he checks.
Yeah, when he gets up in the morning, he said he's intentional about not checking his email first thing. So.
Which is, of course, exactly what I do. Yeah. I was like, I'm like, what do you mean you don't do that? What? That's exactly the first thing that I do while I'm brushing my teeth. I mean,
but you won't on your Disney cruise because your phone will be off.
Not on my cruise. No.
That's right.
Perhaps I will learn some distance from that.
Well, we love Derek and what he brings to the TrueU community. What a great leader, inspirational in how he's growing his company and the approach that he's taking. And
so many people can learn from him. He's great.
yeah,
He's just
and
really
I
great.
think that he's also taken that same spirit of generosity,
Yes.
wanting to help others and to share with others who come to him. And so
he's been generous with us and me specifically, and letting me kind of go into their world with their culture. So
yeah, we appreciate him making the drive from Cincinnati here today
Yes.
to be with us for our podcast. So that wraps up this edition of the TrueU Leadership Insights podcast. To learn more about TrueU, go to the TrueU website, TrueU.com. If you have feedback or questions that you would like us to explore on a future podcast, you can email them to me at kyle.defer@trueu.com. Thanks for listening today, and I wish you the best in your journey to live out your TrueU.